Hello, 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 hello. Hey, everybody. So it is Janie Coffee, and I am super excited to share with you probably one of my most favorite topics in real estate, and that is developing a niche, refining a niche, using a niche to kind of rocket your success forward much, much faster with less effort, with less time, and in a very, very fun way. And there is a lot of kind of misconceptions around niche. So I'm hoping to hit on them today, hoping to broaden your mind a little bit. And for sure, having a couple niches in my past 20 years in real estate has really allowed me to go from even in a brand new market to wildly successful in a very short period of time. The 3 or 4 niches. All of this is under the luxury umbrella because that's what we're training on today. But the 3 niches that I've personally had have been equestrian, waterfront, and historic. I'm in Northeast Florida. I moved up from Miami 10 years ago. So 10 years in Miami, 10 years in Northeast Florida. And every once in a while, I come across the holy grail, a waterfront historic equestrian property. But just having those niches has really, really allowed me to succeed so much faster and kind of cut through the noise. And I want to share with you all how you can help find your niche, maybe do a little research on your niche, and hone in on that well-known phrase, the riches is in the niches. So hopefully you guys will love this as much as I do and find something good to take away. So we do have a chat down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on Instagram or Facebook and you're watching it live, you can share your comments down below and I will try to get to them as we go through. If not at the end, I will definitely save the last 5 or 10 minutes for questions. So without further ado, let's talk about why you might want to actually farm a niche. Because a lot of people are actually very, very scared when I talk about this. They think they're going to pigeonhole themselves into something and eliminate other opportunities for themselves. And it doesn't work that way. You are going to hone your skills, hone your knowledge, hone your relationships around a niche. But just by being in real estate, you are still going to have plenty of other opportunities, either from the people you're coming in contact with who have multiple properties or they want to refer you to somebody. So you're always going to get a variety of types of properties. But if you are scared of a niche and you've been a little bit of a jack of all trades, it becomes very, very hard to get traction, like serious traction in real estate, because you might be doing a condo over here, a townhouse over here, an investment property here, a listing over here, this price point, that price point, and you're scattered all over. So the relationships you're building, the database you're building, the marketing that you're doing, none of it supports each other. They're all like little satellites of activity and there's no layering on top. But once you start to pull into a niche, and we will talk about property type niches, people type niches, and lifestyle type niches. But once you start to pull into a niche, if you have a property here and a property here and a listing here and a buyer here, those things start to layer on top of each other. The buyers, the database, the marketing, the yard signs, the print and digital media, the knowledge base, all of it starts to become kind of this well-built little sphere of awesomeness all around your niche, which really makes you basically become a category of one. So I talk a lot about the book by Gary Keller, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and he talks about Mets versus haven't yet met, or I guess he calls them not Mets, people that you've already met, people that you haven't not yet met. As you have a niche, you're building your Met database of people who have come in contact with you, have heard of you, have met you. You're building that up, and there is a very high likelihood that that's going to result in additional business around that niche, or they can refer you to somebody. Even fellow agents can refer you business in that niche, and it is so much stronger and more efficient and economical of a business model to build up a database, Mets. And if on top of that, you've built it up around a niche, that's even that much more powerful. So you have that multiplier effect. I like to kind of liken it to an onion where you've got multiple layers of the onion, marketing, networks, relationships, all those things. And it just becomes so, so strong. And you become so competitive that it really becomes almost a way that nobody can compete with you. And that is the very best possibility to be in when you're working with buyers, trying to get buyer agreements, when you're working with sellers, trying to sign the listing agreement. You want people coming to you. You want them seeing you as a specialist. It also has an evergreen effect. So as you're putting content out there, maybe you're writing blog posts, maybe you're doing YouTube videos, not just about a listing, but around that niche, that becomes evergreen, that will continue to be out there in the internet. The relationships will be out there in the internet, and it will constantly continue to work for you. So 10 years ago, I moved to a new market, but 4 years before that, I went into management at a large luxury brokerage. So I hadn't been an agent for about 4 years at that time. Even when I moved to a new market, I still had for another 4 years, so about an 8-year lifespan, I still had buyers and sellers coming to me around my equestrian niche because of articles they were finding in the past that I had written on my blog, or listings that I had listed and sold in my past. So the evergreen effect, the long-term effect of your marketing, just builds upon itself, builds upon itself, builds upon itself, that you don't get if you're scattered all over the place. So really, really think about that. Like I said, this is about efficiency in money, time, bandwidth, and compression of the time to get you known as the go-to agent, whether that's on the buy side or the sell side, to both buyers, sellers, people who can refer you business or recommend you to their friends and family, and to fellow agents. Sometimes we forget about how powerful your agent to agent relationships can be. If you tie your niche into a lifestyle that you live or a hobby that you have, then you actually have the ability to connect your passions with your profession. So there's so many real estate niches that are tied into a lifestyle, especially at the higher end price point. At the mid average price point, for the most part, people are buying homes to live in, to raise their families in, to be, just live. But a lot of times as you go up in price point, now they're really living their lifestyle or living their hobby in connection to their property. Ski properties, golf properties, equestrian properties, boating properties, oceanfront properties, all those things, urban properties. They have an entire lifestyle that they want to live, or hobby that they love. And now that's tied into that. And if that's a hobby or lifestyle that you live as well, now you're bringing all your knowledge, all your skills, all your kind of backstory and street cred and potential relationships into your real estate business, so they can really understand, what you're talking about with that particular type of property. It becomes very, very important, especially with really unique lifestyles. So right here we have a waterfront property. I don't see any docks here, but for example, if you sell properties or live in an area that has properties that are on the water that have docks, because people boat from their homes, there's lots of questions around that type of lifestyle. They're going to ask about the draft, what kind of fishing is had there, what is the depth at low tide, are there sandbars out there, what's the lift on the dock. You can have really great conversations with both the sellers, who now understand that you are able to showcase their property really, really well, because you can talk the talk and walk the walk, but also with buyers and buyers agents who then can understand, oh, you really understand this property and you understand the type of ways that I want to enjoy this property. It is so much better than like, oh my gosh, let me look that up for you, or I don't know, because now you can really talk about, oh yeah, the redfish are, swimming at this time of year, or, this time of day, or all this. People love to connect with other people who have a shared hobby or a shared lifestyle. So this is something great you can do. It allows you to take control of your time, because like I said, you're layering on, and you're having not to do marketing for, a farm over here, marketing for a townhouse over here, marketing over here, driving there. When you have a niche, everything that you do serves more than one purpose, meaning yard signs, marketing, marketing of your listing, marketing of yourself, even showings. They are layering on top of themselves. So again, you're compressing your time, you're compressing you're stretching your dollar a lot further, and your time to become the expert is exponentially faster when you have a niche, because likely, there's few, if any, other agents really specializing in that niche. So for you to all of a sudden build that out and start to put content out and start to have, amazing listings and amazing buyer stories and videos and social media around that niche, very quickly you can start to become seen as the go-to person for that niche. And just like when you have attorneys, you can have a regular attorney, but then you can have a divorce attorney for men, you can have a ticket clinic type attorney, you can have a medical malpractice attorney. When you need specific type of attorney, you're always willing to pay more. You're always willing to listen to them more because you understand they are the specialist in that type of law. It's the same thing with real estate. People can go to a generalist agent and then they're really going to try to have the agents compete on price. And what I mean by that is either compete on lowering their commissions or compete on telling them a higher price, whether that's achievable or not. A lot of times it's not, but they're not competing based on skills, network, knowledge, things like that. Once you become a specialist, you don't have that same level of competition. So there's a lot less pushback on your commission, your terms, on price, things like that, because they need you. Just like you need a specialty attorney if you get a ticket or if you have medical malpractice. So you are becoming seen as the expert. And it also can give you a lot more press opportunities to get in the news, opportunities to get your listings coverage in the news as you're seen as the expert. So hopefully I wet your whistle just a little bit about why you might want to consider a niche if you haven't yet already. But the main point is it puts you in control. You're in control of your business, but then you're also in control of the direction your business goes because you have so many opportunities to choose from. You're not operating from a place of lack where you feel like you don't have enough opportunity. So you've got to work with the next buyer or seller that comes your way, even if they're not realistic, motivated, and nice. You have so many opportunities when you develop your niche that you can really pick and choose who you want to work with, who makes sense, who you know is going to end up with you at the other side of the closing table. Like I said, it allows you to pull together your specialty skills and your knowledge, just like I talked about the waterfront example. Or if you're a golfer, you might have all kinds of knowledge that you can talk about the different holes on the golf course where a community is. Or if you're a skier, you can talk about the different slopes and where properties are on different slopes. You can talk about all the things that are related to, snow and driveways and all the things related to that. So you've got specialty skills. You also often have specialty connections. So if you're specializing in skiing, maybe you have special connections with people who take care of those long driveways that you might need if you're on a ski slope, or the ski pros down at the shop, things like that. Or if you're an equestrian person, you might have great relationships with equestrian trainers or at the feed store or the saddle fitter. All of these connections can really start to enhance and build your real estate business because they are also coming in contact with the types of people who want to buy and sell these types of properties. There might be other specialty things. If you're specializing, say, in equestrian land, you might need special people to analyze the land to make sure arenas can be built there. Or if there's wetlands or lowlands or highlands, or does it flood, things like that. I'm talking about my experience here in Northeast Florida, but these are special connections that you might not have otherwise if you're more of a generalist real estate agent. You might have to really search hard to find these kind of people, but if you've developed a niche, you've got these people because you work with them all the time. And again, these are people who have a great position to give you back referrals, recommendations, and things like that for other buyers and sellers. Again, we talked about having an aligned hobby or passion. You have the experience, you have the background, you can walk the walk and talk the talk. In my own equestrian real estate, so many times, I ended up getting a listing second after they had their favorite agent or their friend or themselves, sometimes owner brokers, list the property who was not an equestrian real estate specialist. And they realized often very, very quickly that person didn't have the skills, the knowledge, the background, the language, the experience to properly discuss that property with potential buyers. And the sellers realize that's a real problem. I've seen it in waterfront property, in any kind of niche. So you being able to have those conversations with buyers and with sellers gives you that street cred where they're like, okay, this person can really, really explain all the benefits of my property that a non-equestrian or a non-waterfront boater person wouldn't even know to explain to a buyer. That becomes very, very important to sellers. So that's another thing that it does for you and help elevate you up as the expert. A concentrated effort in that area can help you, again, be efficient in your marketing dollars, efficient in your time. It makes you more likely, if you're in a state where you can represent the buyer and the seller. I'm in Florida and we can do that here. It makes you much more likely to end up potentially having the buyer and the seller for all the reasons we've talked about, because of your connections, because of your relationships, because of who you are getting out there. If you're putting it on specialty sites, if you're marketing on specialty sites around that property type, you just become that much more likely to end up having the buyer and the seller. It makes you so much easier to gain and retain top of mind awareness. Like I said, becoming the expert so much faster than if you were doing general real estate for a lot of price points, a lot of locations, a lot of property types. You can 100% push out the competition, where when people are listing and they're calling to list, a lot of times they will only call you because they're like, I know you're the equestrian specialist, or you're the historic specialist, you're the golf specialist, you're the I guess pickleball could even be a niche now at this point, because pickleball is such a big deal. We're going to talk now in a minute about all the different potential niches that you might want to consider looking at and see if they would make sense in your market. You, again, reduce objections in your commission terms, pricings like that. You're the expert. And then the residual effects, the evergreen effect, becomes very, very strong. Anybody I teach and coach and train, I always talk about, I want you to visualize you becoming that person that you've been afraid of competing against. We all have somebody that we look at and we think, oh my gosh, I could never break into the market because Bob or Mary or whomever is the top agent in that type of real estate or that location. I want you all to imagine yourself being that person. In 2 to 3 years, you will be that person where people are afraid of competing against you. They're like, oh my gosh, don't even try to get into, ski properties in Vail. Larry owns that market. That is Larry's market. That's the type of vision I want you guys to create for yourself, and I want you to think about it and hold on to it. So let's run through this is certainly not an exhaustive list, but some property type or lifestyle types of niches, because I could probably make a list of 100 different niches or more, but some people only specialize in condos. I know people who only specialize in penthouses in Miami. They only do penthouses in Miami. That is a very specialized niche. Waterfront. And then within waterfront, you've got lakefront, oceanfront, riverfront. Those are all different because the lifestyle somebody lives who's directly on the ocean is different than the lifestyle somebody lives who has a lakefront house or a riverfront house where boating is maybe the main lifestyle they live. If they're oceanfront, it might more be going out to the beach, walking on the beach, listening to the waves. It's a very different thing. Skiing. Excuse me. Island. If you live in an area where there's a lot of islands, that could be an entire niche. Even if individual islands, depending on where you live, individual islands are owned by individual people, that can be a whole thing. Farm and ranch, equestrian, historic, golf, bed and breakfasts and inns, as opposed to Airbnb, that's normally an individual door, single family home or condo. There's a whole niche around bed and breakfasts and inns. I'm in historic St. Augustine, Florida, so we have a lot of true bed and breakfasts. There are people who specialize just in that. I know somebody who specializes in Miami in those small boutique hotels that have a lot of charm in South Beach. Maybe they're 20 rooms, 30 rooms, but they're not big, giant, Marriotts and things like that. Wineries, short-term rental clients, recreational land. And what I mean by recreational land is um, a lot of people have recreational land where they don't live, but they go out. Maybe they hunt, maybe they camp, but they have large tracts of recreational land. Hobby farms. I personally live on a small hobby farm in Northeast Florida. That's a whole niche because that is very different than a farmer who is farming large tracts of land as his or her main income. That's a very different type of client. It's a very different type of conversation. And normally the whole properties are set up differently. Architecturally significant properties. So if you're in an area, there might be very specific types of architecture in that area or a specific architect in that area. I know agents who have built their entire careers around one or two architects and all the properties that they designed over time, or again, an architecturally significant kind of style, where you really become known for that architectural style. I know somebody who specializes in haunted properties. City or urban living can be a whole niche. Boutique hotels, like I talked about, fly-in communities. I'm in Florida again, so we have quite a few fly-in communities. Living on Maria Island. So yes, I specialize in island waterfront homes in Santa Maria, Perico, Longboat Key, and Siesta Key. See, that's a whole niche. Like that is a very special niche. There's a lot of things related to owning properties on those islands that don't relate to people who have homes on the mainland. Insurances, water protection, even just shopping and different things like that. Maybe windstorm protection, all these things. So be thinking about, and thank you for dropping in the comments. And if you want to continue to drop in the comments, that would be awesome. Different niches that either you yourself, excuse me, currently have, or maybe reading through this list has made you think, oh, wow, like I never thought of that. That's a whole niche. But like I said, fly-in communities. Okay, Fred said, is there a risk of overemphasizing your niche to the point that people feel you specifically, hold on, your specialty is the lane you work best and may not work with you in other property types? How do you balance this? Yes, there is that potential. Like I was speaking to somebody the other day and they were saying that they knew somebody, I think he specialized in HUD housing and Section 8 housing and things like that for investors. And I was like, that could potentially affect you, say, being able to do luxury housing or something like that. But for the most part, even when you put your niche out there, unless you make your niche your entire identity, which you might. I know people who do that. I know people who make their entire niche their main identity. And they've done that on purpose by choice. But even if you don't, you're still going to get other opportunities, other business to come your way, even if it's just from the people that you've been marketing to from the niche. Because often, again, they own multiple properties or they recommend you to friends and family who own other types of properties. There's always additional things. So you yourself can choose on that spectrum how much and how hard you want to go into that niche. I would look to see within that niche how much total property sells within your area for that niche so that you can see, hey, is this a niche that can sustain me if I did, 80% of my business came from that niche? Is there enough business out there in my market? And the way I would do that, I would look at your whole market in your MLS, see how many properties closed in that niche in the last 12 months, see what the average price point is. Take that average price point, times it by your average commission and what you net after your brokerage split and all the things, and to determine how many sold in the last 12 months and take 20% of that. Because I think somebody who puts their head down and works really hard can easily get a 20% market share in a niche. It's harder to get 20% market share in a big geographic area, but it's not that difficult to get a 20% market share in a niche. So let's say, I don't know, 40 homes sold in an area in the last 12 months, 20% of that would be 8 homes. Figure out what would the commission that you would get, what would you net if you sold 8 homes at the average price, winning your commission after your splits? And then add another 20% on top of that, because for sure you're going to get other kind of business, and see if that's enough business for you. If it is, I would probably go head deep into that niche, because it is so much easier. If you go head deep into a niche, it is so much easier. Everything is easier. Business comes to you. Like I said, a lot less pushback on commission, terms, price, all those things. The one thing I would do is see if your niche, and if not, um, you want to make sure that your niche maybe has a variety of price points. So for example, in my example, historic, there's a large variety of price points in historic homes. There's also a variety of price points in equestrian homes, a little bit less, because generally they tend to be a little higher. Because if you have a variety of price points, you can be nimble with the market. Meaning, if the market shifts down, becomes, say, really a buyer's market, you can go into the lower price points because they normally turn faster. If the market goes up and becomes a strong seller's market, you can shift up in price point, because then you have like that collective audience where you're really the person, and then you can basically shift with any market, buyer's market, seller's market, whatever. You can just shift up and down, but you've already developed that bigger niche around, like, your whole presence around that niche. If all your property types in that niche are only at the higher price points, which, maybe certain waterfront properties are, penthouses certainly are, you might want to keep your foot in another, maybe adjacent type property, but that's not just in the higher price points. Because if the market goes really soft, you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket only in the high price properties. So for example, when I'm talking about penthouses, if somebody was a specialist in penthouses, they might want to keep 20-30% of their business not penthouses, so that they can shift. And maybe that's in condos, right? Still beachfront condos, but it's the lower price point. So hopefully, Fred, that helps answer it a little bit. But if there's enough business to sustain you, and there's a variety of price points for that niche, I would go head in. I really would. So next one, vacation rentals out of the US, castles. That's a really fun one. I am completely obsessed with all the castles in Europe and the prices that they sell for. So for our friends out of the country that are in places where they have those, you can also build relationships where you might build your whole niche around something like that, and just refer that to people in other countries. Green, eco-friendly can be a whole niche. Special architectural styles, brownstones, Victorian, Spanish eclectic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Contemporary, modern, brutalist, all the different styles. If you have that in your area, that could be a whole super strong niche. Highly walkable, meaning in an urban area where you can walk to everything in 10-15 minutes. That could be a whole niche in and of itself. Mountain living, off-grid living. Like, if you start to think about it, the sky's the limit as far as lifestyle and property type niches. This is just a little smattering. But what people often don't think about is there's also people farms, properties around certain people, and how they do things. So sports and entertainment is probably one of the most obvious. That's not a property type niche, but it is a very, very specific niche, because athletes and entertainers, to some degree, have often very, very specific requirements of what they buy, where they live. So athletes often need to be within, especially say a football or basketball player, they often need to be within a certain distance to where they train every day. They might need security, so they might need to be in a gated community. They might need, well, they often always need, a high level of discretion from their agent. And also, the way that you work and often get to athletes is, instead of marketing to athletes directly, you're often developing relationships with their managers, their financial planners, their handlers. Same thing with entertainers. A lot of times entertainers move around because they're on set for a length of time. A lot of times you're not dealing with the entertainer directly. You're dealing with their manager, their handler, their things like that. So that's a whole specialty niche. Out of town buyers and owners, that's a whole special niche around a people farm. They have some very specific requirements and needs that you could help them with. They might need concierge services. They might need somebody to check on their property. They might need somebody to give them information on um, the area that they're looking at. So you can build up a whole kind of buyer's guide for out of town buyers. That's a niche. Aging clients, which is called silver real estate, where they're downsizing, which the word people use now is right sizing. That's a whole niche. Military clients, that's a whole niche. Art lovers, people who are big art lovers and collectors, they have really special needs in the properties they buy. They need a lot of wall space. They need maybe certain windows or window protection so there's not direct sunlight maybe on their art. They might need special security. They might need all kinds of things. So even if you're in an area where art and art galleries and art collectors is heavy, you might even develop a niche around art lovers. And that's again where you start to tie in your passion and your connections and your knowledge, where you become the go-to person if some big collector is looking to buy a new home because you understand all their special needs. You might develop a niche around a certain philanthropic or community group where you're really embedded in there and you are part of them and you have something tied in with them and they see you as a specialist. Distressed owners, that's a whole niche in and of itself. Distressed meaning either the property themselves is distressed or they are distressed owners, meaning they're in pre-foreclosure or something like that. We don't get that so much at the higher price point, but depending on where you are, there's some places where there's really high-end properties, but the properties have been let go, and that's a whole special niche where a lot of other agents might kind of poo-poo that opportunity. You could step in and be the go-to person. You could end up building up a whole database of buyers who are looking to buy higher-end distressed properties. International clients, 1031 clients, young physicians is a very specific niche because they often have really great income, but lower down payments, maybe not much of a credit profile because they've been in school so long. There are special loan programs for young physicians, and they often are in residency, so they need to be within a certain drive distance from a hospital or an emergency room where they work. So that can be or is often a very special niche. Relocation people, where C-suite folks are being relocated by their company. Flippers, there's high-end flippers, so something like that. So really giving a lot of thought, not just to property type, not just to lifestyle type, but people types can really help you. And you might already be dealing with these types of folks or these types of properties, but you hadn't thought about it enough to realize, oh my gosh, that's my niche. I actually had an agent I work with who herself has done a ton of 1031 exchanges. And we are used to dealing with the 1031 intermediaries and the specialist on the actual transaction side of the 1031. But we don't often think to find real estate agents who specialize in doing 1031 exchanges. And that's how she's positioning herself. Oh, good. So Penny said she's working with new doctors and relocation. So Penny already has two, and now she can actually build on that. Start putting out blog posts. Start putting out social media. Start putting out videos around that. With relocation, looking at your brokerage to see, do they have a relocation department? Can I get relocation certified? A lot of these specialties also have, how do we connect to market to our niche? Yes, I will talk about that in just a second. But so just look at this list and think, what am I already doing? Maybe didn't realize that it is or could be a niche, or what do I love? What's in my area that I would love to expand in, and have fun with it. Storm damaged homes could be a new niche. If yes, absolutely, storm damaged homes and storm damaged homes. We have so many places right now where people are dealing with storm damage, right? From winds, from floods, from landslides, all those things. There's a whole specialty thing around storm damaged homes, helping them have the resources to relocate temporarily, helping them navigate the insurance, helping them navigate if there's grants or things available to them, helping them make the hard decision to sell if they need to. So that is a whole thing in and of itself. a whole thing in and of itself. Okay, so connecting with fellow agents. The other awesome thing about a niche is it really allows you to connect with other agents in a very, very meaningful way. So inbound referrals from local agents. Again, my two main niches here that are a little more unique is the historic and the equestrian. I have had plenty of local agents that I know send a referral my way because it's either historic or equestrian, and they just didn't feel comfortable. That was not their wheelhouse. They realized that's really a special niche, and I don't have all the background. Let me introduce you to Janie, and then they earn a referral on it. I take it over, and that's just building that sphere. Remember that ball of all your connections, all your knowledge, all your tips and tricks around that niche. So never, never neglect the opportunity that you might have with fellow agents. A lot of people think that that doesn't work, but it does. We end up doing easily a third, probably it's more than a third right now, of our business comes from fellow agents. It's that strong. Specialty network. So if you specialize, say, in downsizing, in senior housing, there's whole networks of agents around just that. If you specialize in divorce, there are agents who just specialize in working with divorcing partners. There are networks around divorce professionals, from the attorney, the CPA, all the things, where you could be the real estate person in that thing. Kind of think like BNI or something like that, but around um, the divorce profession. If you're in equestrian, there's places where other fellow equestrian agents, your real estate brokerage might have even a division. Ours does here at EXP. I know Sotheby's does. I believe Compass does. But a lot of larger brokerages might have a whole division, or there might be a broker agnostic network around that specialty that you are honing in on. There's probably specialty certifications. There's definitely specialty certifications on working with international clients. There's definitely certifications on working relocation. There's definitely certifications on working with military or aging. I do believe there's one on historic homes. There should be one on equestrian. I don't know if that exists. Maybe I'll create that. But look and see if there's certifications on that, because if there is a certification, one, that's going to give you additional knowledge. But two, there's probably some kind of network from that certifying authority that you can tie into, which leads to a lot of referral opportunities. Because if I have an equestrian client and they're moving to Aiken, South Carolina, I'm going to want to partner them up with an equestrian specialist in Aiken, South Carolina, not just an agent. So also, then there might even be conferences around that specialty, depending on what that is. Excuse me. So it's lots and lots of ways to build referral opportunities, build connections, build knowledge base, also where you can connect with somebody. So let's talk a minute about what I call swarming. So if you shake a nest of bees or wasps, they swarm, and all of a sudden they're everywhere. They're surrounding you. Your goal, if you're really going to build out a niche, your goal would be to like swarm, where somebody looks around and they're like, oh my gosh, you're everywhere. You are everywhere, because you are everywhere in their little world, whether that's the ski world or the golf world or the equestrian world. They're like, you're everywhere. You're the go-to person. You can have and I'm just going to rattle these off really, really fast because I want to leave some time at the end for more questions. You can have a dedicated website. If your website or CRM allows you to have little microsites, you can build out just a little microsite or a section on your website about that specialty. You can do direct mail, where you're sending out direct mail on a bi-monthly or a monthly basis on just listed, just sold, market reports, things to know specific to that niche. So again, positioning yourself as a specialist. You can do targeted email. If you start to build up your email of, again, let's say equestrian, I might start to build up an equestrian only email list and make sure to put out monthly, bi-monthly, weekly even, emails about equestrian properties and equestrian things. If there's a tax sale, if there's a horse show, I would be having it all on there. Hey, from Janie Coffee, your equestrian specialist. You can create or be part of a Facebook page or a Facebook group all around that niche. You can blog, you can get out there networking and getting to know people in the community living that lifestyle. Open houses, of course. You can do local print advertising, and I'll show you some examples of what I mean by that. But so equestrian, maybe there's a local magazine that goes out to all the horse farms or all the feed stores. I can have advertising in there. Maybe they'll let me write an article on a monthly basis on the market report for equestrian living. So be thinking about how can you get out in multiple touch points in multiple ways to people so that they kind of see you everywhere. Walk the walk, talk the talk. So what you're doing within that niche on social media, putting out market reports as it relates to that specific property type, creating videos around that specific property type or of listings, things like that. If you're active on the Nextdoor app, you can offer online market valuations where you say, hey, no obligation market valuation for your property. You can offer to do guest blogging for other people who are writing on that same topic. You can do Google PPC ads, sending people to your targeted, your little specialty microsite. You can run Google PPC ads, building up your email list from that even. You can do Facebook ads, you can do promoted posts, you can have special events, or you can participate in special events. So if you're equestrian specialist, maybe you can have a booth at some horse shows where you have your flyers, your brochures, all about equestrian real estate and how you're the specialist. You can start to build up your press connections so that as you get listings, you can ask them, maybe they can cover your listing, or maybe they go to you for quotes and references when they're writing articles. Real estate market updates, promote other local similar businesses. Again, in the equestrian example, maybe I would then promote and do a whole video on the local tack store or the local saddle fitter or an amazing equestrian vet or an amazing farrier, something like that. So you're putting out business, helping other aligned businesses with their business. SEO and SMO, search engine optimization and social media optimization, putting out an e-newsletter, doing expires to that niche, like really going after property owners who have that type of property that didn't sell with the first person, sharing stuff about top sales and listings in the area, even if they're not your listings. If you have that disclaimer, depending on your area, have the disclaimer, these aren't my properties, I'm just letting you know what's going on with all the ski properties, with all the golf properties. And then you can do circle, cold, or warm calling if you're a prospector as well. So somebody asked earlier, living in social, can a second or third language be a niche? Absolutely, that can be a niche. I worked with and coached somebody who spoke Czech, and there's a lot of people who are buying in Miami. And I told him to write a whole blog, have a whole separate blog all in Czech about Miami real estate. So a second or third language, 100% is a niche. And I would play that up. I would start putting out things in that natural language or in that second or third language, both social media and video. I would find other agents who speak that language, either across the US, across Canada, wherever you work, and connect with them and even provide them, if you're doing a weekly or a monthly newsletter in that language, I would find other agents in your feeder markets and be providing them your newsletter in that language, because they very likely might have somebody who speaks that language moving or buying in your area. So that is a huge opportunity. Thank you for pointing that out. Marketing your listing. So you can create a Facebook check-in. If you're in an area that people are going to geographically drive by, you can create a Facebook check-in about the listing. So when they go to check in somewhere and tag something, they might see your property. I always say like such and such for sale, which triggers their kind of interest, and they go click over there. You can create a Facebook page around it. You can create targeted ad campaign. These are all for the listing specifically. Your curated email list. You can do Instagram. You can do hashtagging keywords in Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn and all that. You can post flyers of your listings at the specialized businesses. So in my case, again, the feed store or the different equestrian places, the riding arenas, the schools, things like that. You also might have actual print marketing where there's specialized magazines that come out around that lifestyle. So here's just an example. These are real print magazines. Equestrian Magazine, Airbnb Magazine, Victorian Home Magazine, Vintage Cottage Magazine, AOA Pilot Magazine, Grapevine Magazine. So these are all around lifestyle. So you can advertise your listings in there, and it's normally not very expensive at all. They often might even have a mailing list that you can partner with. They're not going to give you the mailing list, but they might have programs where you can pay a certain amount and they will mail something out to their mailing list. Affiliated type businesses, affiliated type agents. Also give affiliated type agents, you can create a whole non-branded media kit for your special listings and share these with other agents. It's not branded and say, I'm, paying a referral, or you can get the whole buyer side and let them market your property as well. Like I said, sending it back to feeder markets. If there's certain feeder markets, have likely buyers for your area, local journalists and influencers. And then you might even do like a multi-property flyer if you've got, say, several ski properties or several golf properties or several historic properties. So think about that. And then there's also specialty websites. And I'm going to wrap up in about 2 minutes. And then we can jump into any other questions you have. There's lots of specialty websites. So if you are building out a niche, figure out what websites or specialize for those types of properties. They're whole real estate portals just for that property type. So horseproperties.net, historicproperties.com, circleoldhouses.com, LoopNet and CoStar if it has some kind of commercial element, bedandbreakfastforsale.com, InShopper, Homes and Land, Landwatch, Lake House, Atomic Ranch. That's just about 1950s, 1960s ranch homes, golf homes. You can see there's tons and tons and tons of specialty things. There's even specialty website for homes with large garages for car collectors. That's a whole specialty niche in and of itself, car collectors, because they normally need large garages. They normally need garages that are climatized with air conditioner. They might even need like a little shop in the garage. They might have a man cave in the garage. So that's a whole thing. And there's a website that just helps promote that. There's probably specialty clubs for car collectors. So just thinking about all the different ways we can do that. I'm going to play a little quick 1-minute video. This is for the folks here at EXP. We have just launched the Land and Ranch division, which is absolutely beautiful. It's a brand new division that you do have to join. You can join by qualification or by certification. There is an annual cost, but this kind of takes everything that I talked to and ties it up in a bow with advertising opportunities, training opportunities, networking opportunities, referral opportunities. So if you're not at EXP, if you're at Sotheby's, if you're at Ingram Volkers, if you're at Compass, very, very likely your brokerage has some kind of similar division. And if not, look into it. You might have that already, but if you are at EXP or you're looking at EXP, we're super, super excited about our newest division, Land and Ranch, which is for land, ranch, farm, equestrian, things like that. If you're interested in that, you can go to landandranch.exprealty.com and learn more about it as a consumer, a buyer, seller, or if you want to join it, if you already are at EXP. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and see if there's other questions that I haven't answered, or feel free to ask questions because I'm here to help get you going on a niche train.
Your content was awesome, Janie. I mean, it really provided tons and tons of stuff. Lots of comments came in throughout. One I noticed I don't think I got to was how to find, I'm going to put up the screen, how to find builder data to reach out to luxury single family home marketing.
How to find builder data. So do you mean you want to advertise, and that would be a great niche, you want to advertise new home construction from a variety of builders to buyers? Is that what you were asking? I think that's what he's asking.
I think that's it too. I think you can find that data, and there are several actually online data sources you can buy data from. I know I own like 3 or 4 of them subscriptions. I feel like I'm always getting data, but you can look up builder data. You can look up that kind of stuff. Who is that? I'll see if I can find who that is.
Yeah, I know somebody. I think I know what he's asking about. Like, I know people who specialize in new condo construction.
Yep.
And it's the same for new home construction, new developments. If you reach out to the builder or to the developer or to the sales force, they normally have a whole huge library of non-branded materials to give you. So I know people who have their whole website, because their specialty is new condo buying. So they have their whole website is built out, all the new condos, the price ranges, what's available, the pros and cons. And those builders and developers are happy to share that information with agents.
Absolutely. I love this question. I love this statement. It's not a question. It says, I once saw the home that had been on the market for 6 years by staging the large garage with luxury cars. Sometimes it's just a little things that just make the things go above and beyond.
And that's an amazing opportunity for a crazy broker open house. Have the local high-end car dealer bring their cars in, have them invite their own database as well, and have like an afternoon, evening soiree, because they probably have the most likely buyer, somebody with a large car collection.
That's so good. And then somebody saying, what about the non-branded package? We're talking about, guys, is that a lot of the builders will have their own kind of branding package that, well, they'll provide you. Like I know here locally, we've got several builders that have like a marketing package that they would just provide you. You could brand it yourself. And it's usually like an editable Canva or something like that works.
Yep.
Awesome. I'm looking through it. I think that covers all the questions that came in, Jenny. I think you answered a lot of them throughout. Great session. I think that, we'll have this posted inside Instagram. It's live right now on Instagram. Plus, it's posted on YouTube as well. So if you guys have any questions about anything, feel free to reach out anytime. Glad to help any way we can. She goes, no, mean. Oh, she says, Myers Group says, no, I mean on our listings.
What was the question again, Cindy?
I'm about branded packaging. And so like non-branded.
I think she was saying how to make non-branded packaging. I think what you're saying is how to make something non-branded to be able to give to other agents to share. Whenever you do something, you probably are getting from your photographer the branded home tour and the non-branded home tour, because you have to put the non-branded into the MLS. Create a whole Google Drive or a whole Dropbox or whatever you use, and drop all those assets in there. The top 20 photos, the non-branded video that doesn't have your contact information, the non-branded tour, a facts and feature sheet, and empower other agents to market your listing, especially if it's in a line with like a niche. Like if I had an equestrian property, I might share non-branded assets for my listing. I might share that with a bunch of equestrian agents outside of my area, or even in my area, because I want to sell it, to have them promote it as well. And the reason it's non-branded is they then know they're protected, that if their client is interested, they'll contact them. They can put them in touch with me. And then I would be able to take and either give them a referral or the whole buy side, depending on their situation and where they're licensed.
Yeah, that's awesome. Last thing I saw here is any special price for farm and ranch division for luxury members. There is. I believe it's 20%. I'm not for sure.
Yeah,
100%. I will, if you want to reach out to
20% off.
Yes, 20% off the current membership price for sure. Awesome, guys. All right. I think we're going to wrap it up. Janie, thank you so much. What a great session. We'll get everything out if you guys need it. Feel free to keep commenting on the videos, and we'll find ways to comment back and get your answers. So have a great rest of your day, guys. Thanks, Janie.
Bye.
See y'all.